All right, the UK elections, they still go on here. Too early to tell how it's all going to sort out here. Former strategy director to David Cameron joins us. Steve Hilton, of course, with his hit show right now, His People Have People, so I'm glad we got Steve. Steve, very good to see you, and thank you very much for coming. What happened here? It's too early to sort of completely put a nail in the political coffin of Theresa May, but I do wonder what she must be thinking now about calling this early election and everything that's followed. What do you think?
Well, I can't imagine what's going through her mind. It's a total disaster. I mean, such a catastrophic mistake. And I think that she's got to be fearing for her prospects of hanging on to her job. She's been out there saying that the country needs a period of stability. She was the one that was supposed to offer that stability and actually wrecked it with this campaign that nobody wanted, that she fought terribly, and that has ended up with people feeling more uncertain than at the beginning. So I think that the real question is whether she can survive as the leader. And I think that your discussion earlier about people who might be looking to take over is exactly the right one to be having, because I think that her party has got to be looking at her and saying, you've just completely messed this up. What earns you the right to stay on?
Now, you look at the populist revolution, and I'm wondering whether something changed or whether this is a rebellion against populism, the rage that was Brexit a year ago. What's going on?
I don't think it's that. What was interesting was that she said this election was all about Brexit. She said the reason that you need to have the election is that she wanted a stronger hand in the negotiations. Most of the people commenting on the election, the first point they made during the campaign was that Brexit was hardly even discussed. And all the polling evidence suggests that actually the British people have moved on. They've accepted the result of Brexit. They don't want to reopen it. They just want to get on with it. And they felt that this election was unnecessary. And I think the reason that she did so badly was actually some of the things you were talking about earlier. It's much more to do with her. She was a terrible campaigner. Right at the beginning of the campaign, she did a massive U-turn on one of the flagship policies in her own program. And I think the terror attacks played a part as well, because people were incredibly angry that during the campaign you had these two attacks, Manchester and then London, where they revealed massive problems with the way the security services and the police were operating, in the fact that all these terrorists with all these warning signs weren't picked up. She's the one who's been in charge of that as Homeland Security Minister for the last 6 years. So I think those were the factors that really played a part here, rather than any kind of bigger question of a revolt against the establishment or otherwise. I think it was much more the factors that were pretty local to this campaign.
Steve, can I just ask one question? We're dealing with changing our medical structure, the means by which we get health care and pay for it. Britain has this system, which I experienced at a very personal level because my wife happened to be there for a month in a British hospital. We were disgusted by it, frankly. It was actually a very nice, supposed to be one of the best hospitals in London, Queen Square Hospital, but it was terrible in comparison to any hospital I've been to in the United States. And yet it seems that the Brits are still in love with these socialist albatrosses, I would call them, like National Socialist health care. Why is it? Do they not know how bad their treatment is compared to other countries? Or why are they stuck on certain things that are clearly socialist and I would say not working?
Well, I think the simplest answer to that question is the peace of mind. There's something that British people find incredibly satisfactory about the fact that they never have to worry. They never have to think about health insurance, whether they're covered, whether they can just, whether they're going to get treated, whether they're going to have to pay out. And so I think that's the main reason.
And by the way, don't you think,
Steve, look at the American...
Steve, forgive me, but don't you think that's what a lot of the people who want socialist health care here in the United States are hoping happens with Obamacare, that eventually that same kind of feeling will engender itself among the American populace?
Yeah, I think that is right, and I think that to me, the real issue with healthcare is something that is often discussed. But you know, when I was working in government, we wrestled with it as well, which is how do you control the costs, especially when you have an aging population, you have advances in medicine, you have all these treatments that people feel they have a right to expect. That's all expensive. How do you control the costs? And there's no system, actually, that has worked out a really good way of doing that. And I think that at the core of it is this notion of competition, because in most other parts of the economy and society, we understand that competition is a way to get, excuse me, better quality and lower prices. And that doesn't seem to apply enough in the healthcare system. That's certainly true in the UK, but it's also true here.
Amen. Great point, Steve Hilton. It's Kennedy. I have a quick question, because, you know, a lot of what you do in analyzing these two political systems in the UK and the United States is figure out some of these mutual patterns. What can politicians in this country glean from some of the risks that Theresa May has taken, this biggest risk, compared to some of the bigger moves and the big risks that Donald Trump made throughout the 2016 presidential campaign?
I think, funnily enough, the biggest risk that she took was playing it safe, was behaving in a very kind of controlled way. She was like an old school politician. She was a little bit like the Hillary Clinton that people understood here, in the sense of everything being controlled and prepackaged and scripted. She didn't seem spontaneous. She didn't have that kind of humanity, whether you like it or not, that people saw in Donald Trump. And I think that was really one of the main reasons she did so badly, was people just looked at her and they thought she was wooden and uninspiring and was just sort of going through the motions in an old-fashioned kind of political machine style. And that is what people, I think, are really sick of.